I'm gripping the steering wheel of my Uber in Dublin, watching an American tourist in a rental car try to turn left at a roundabout. He's signaling right. His wife is screaming. A delivery van is honking. And I'm thinking, this is going to be a long day. He makes the turn going clockwise. Every other car swerves. The whole roundabout grinds to a halt while he sits there, hands up like he's surrendering to the traffic itself. I pull over to help, and he rolls down his window looking genuinely terrified. "Why is everyone driving on the wrong side?" he asks. I tell him he's in Ireland. He nods slowly, then says, "But we learned English from you guys." That wasn't even the worst I'd seen that month. 2 weeks earlier, I picked up a business traveler from Boston at the airport. Nice guy, late 40s, very confident. He'd rented a car but returned it within an hour. "The transmission's broken," he told me, sliding into my back seat. Kept stalling at every light. I asked what kind of car. He said a Ford Focus, manual transmission. He didn't know what that meant. Apparently, he'd been jamming it into first gear and riding the clutch through central Dublin for 45 minutes before giving up. Then there was the family from Phoenix. I drove to the cliffs of Moher. The poor. Dad mentioned they'd almost died that morning because some maniac was driving straight at them on a country road. I asked which road. He described it. Single-track lane, hedgerows on both sides. He'd been driving down the middle for 3 miles. Just assumed everyone else would move. When I explained the passing places, he looked at me like I'd invented them on the spot to mess with him. My favorite was the college girl from California who'd been in Cork for 2 days. She got into my car fuming about parking tickets. 3 tickets, same spot. She showed me the photos on her phone. Double yellow lines, clear as day. But there weren't any signs, she kept saying. I explained we don't need signs. Yellow lines mean no parking. Red lines mean absolutely no parking. She pulled up Google Maps and showed me a street view from San Francisco where yellow curbs needed posted hours to be enforceable. "See?" she said, triumphant. I told her this wasn't San Francisco. She asked if I could drive her to the appeals office. But that was just the beginning. I worked the front desk at a hotel in Amsterdam, right near Centraal Station. We rent bikes to guests. Most Europeans, no problem. Americans? We've started adding 15 minutes to the checkout process just for the safety briefing. This guy from Texas, maybe 30 years old, comes down one morning to get a bike. Cowboy boots, which should have been my first warning. I go through the usual speech about bike lanes, tram tracks, staying right. He's nodding, but I can tell he's not really listening. He says he bikes all the time back home. Mountain trails, he tells me. I give him the bike. He's back in 7 minutes. Not hurt, thankfully, but furious. Absolutely furious. Says another cyclist crashed into him. I ask what happened. He explains he was riding in the bike lane and needed to turn left, so he stuck out his left arm to signal. The cyclist behind him swerved and clipped his front wheel. Both went down. Nobody was injured, but his bike's front rim is bent. I ask him to demonstrate the hand signal. He extends his left arm straight out, perpendicular to his body. Textbook American left turn signal. In the Netherlands, that means you're stopping or slowing down. To signal left, you're supposed to just turn left. We don't really do hand signals for turns here. The bike lanes are separated. You just position yourself and go. He argues with me for 20 minutes, insists he signaled correctly, pulls up a PDF from the Texas DMV on his phone, showing the arm positions. I try to explain that Dutch cycling rules are different. He asks why we can't just use the normal way. I tell him this is normal for us. He wants me to file a police report against the other cyclist. I explain that won't go anywhere. He demands a refund for the broken bike. I point to the waiver he signed. Eventually, my manager comes out and offers him a replacement bike for free, just to end it. The guy takes it, but spends another 10 minutes telling us how American traffic laws are standardized for safety, and we should consider adopting them. My manager, who's been working here for 30 years, just nods politely. The American leaves. We watch from the window as he enters the bike lane. 3 minutes later, he's going the wrong way down a one-way street, arms out, like he's doing jumping jacks, yelling at a postal worker on a cargo bike. We stop renting bikes to Americans for the rest of the week. I'm a taxi driver in Tokyo, and I've learned to spot American tourists within seconds. They're the ones taking photos of the taxi doors. The automatic doors fascinate them. This woman from Seattle gets in one afternoon, headed to Shibuya. Middle-aged, traveling solo, very chatty. She immediately asks about the white gloves I'm wearing. I explain it's standard for professional drivers. She thinks that's charming. We make small talk. Traffic is light. Then she notices I'm not using my turn signal for a lane change. She doesn't say anything at first, but I can see her tensing up in the mirror. A few minutes later, I change lanes again without signaling. She leans forward. "Excuse me, but aren't you supposed to signal?" I explain that in Japan, we typically only use turn signals for actual turns, not lane changes on highways, unless traffic is very heavy. It's considered unnecessary and even distracting to signal constantly. She processes this. I can see her doing mental math, trying to figure out if I'm lying. She says in America, you signal for everything. Every lane change, every turn, every merge. It's the law. I nod. I tell her that's interesting. Different countries, different rules. She's quiet for a moment, then asks if that causes more accidents. I tell her Japan has one of the lowest traffic fatality rates in the world. She looks this up on her phone, confirms it, goes silent. We're almost to Shibuya when she speaks again. But what if someone doesn't see you changing lanes? I explain that Japanese drivers are trained to maintain constant awareness of surrounding vehicles. Mirrors, head checks, spatial awareness. Signaling is for intention, not permission. She seems skeptical but doesn't push it. When we arrive, she tips me in cash, which is its own cultural confusion. I politely refuse, as is custom. She insists, getting slightly flustered. I refuse again. She finally puts the money away, looking embarrassed. As she's getting out, she says, "You're a really good driver, but you should still signal more." I thank her and bow slightly. She waves and walks off, probably to tell someone back home about the reckless Tokyo taxi driver who didn't crash once. I run a small car rental agency in Reykjavik. We specialize in 4x4s for the ring road. Winter is always interesting. American couple comes in, early 60s, planning to drive around the whole island in January. I immediately start the safety briefing. Ice driving, wind conditions, sheep on the roads, one-lane bridges. They're listening, taking notes even, seem responsible. I'm feeling good about this rental. Then the husband asks about the headlights. When do we turn them on? I tell him they're automatic, but by law, they must be on at all times. He looks confused. Even during the day? Yes, even during the day. Iceland requires daytime running lights year-round. He asks why. I explain it's for visibility in fog, snow, low sun angles. Basically, our weather, 9 months a year. His wife chimes in. That seems like it would drain the battery. I assure her modern cars handle it fine. She's not convinced. Asks if they can turn them off manually to save energy. I explain, again, it's the law. You'll be fined if you're caught driving without lights. The husband asks how much the fine is. I tell him around 10,000 krona, roughly $70. He whistles, says that's steep for forgetting your lights. I clarify. You can't forget. They're automatic. He asks what if the sensor breaks. I tell him that's never happened in 15 years of rentals. He nods slowly, then says, but what if we're driving through the desert parts? I inform him Iceland doesn't have deserts. He pulls out a guidebook and points to photos of black sand beaches and volcanic plains. This looks like a desert, he says. We spend 5 minutes discussing the definition of a desert. His wife Googles it, reads aloud that a desert is defined by precipitation, not appearance. He concedes the point, but still seems worried about the headlights. They take the car, return it 4 days later, leave a review online saying we were helpful, but pushy about unnecessary light rules. I frame the review in my office. I collect these stories full-time. Not just mine, but from drivers, instructors, and enforcement officers across a dozen countries. Every week, I break down another cultural collision most people never see coming. If that kind of ground-level intelligence matters to you, subscribe. I'm a parking enforcement officer in Munich. Before you judge me, know that I actually try to help tourists when I can. But some situations are beyond help. It's a Saturday morning in Schwabing, one of the trendier neighborhoods. I'm doing my rounds when I spot an SUV with rental plates parked diagonally across two spaces in a residential zone. Not uncommon, but this one's blocking a bike lane too. I walk over to write the ticket. American voice from behind me. Hey, we paid for parking. I turn around. Guy in his 30s, coffee in hand, shopping bags from the boutiques down the street. I ask to see his parking receipt. He pulls out his phone and shows me a screenshot of a payment confirmation. I look at the zone number. It's correct. I check the time. Still valid. So far, so good. Then I walk him to his car and point out the actual problems. The diagonal parking, the bike lane obstruction, the fact that he's parked nose in instead of parallel. He looks at the car, then at me, completely lost. I paid, he repeats. I explain that payment doesn't override parking regulations. The space is meant for parallel parking. One vehicle per space. No blocking bike lanes. He argues the space is too small for parallel parking. I point to the Volkswagen Golf parked correctly 2 spaces ahead. Similar length to his SUV. He says his car is wider. I measure with my eyes. It's not. He then explains that back in Denver, if you pay for parking, you can park however you want, as long as you're in a legal zone. I tell him this is Munich, not Denver. He asks if I can just let it go since he's a tourist. I explain I've already started writing the ticket. He asks how much. I tell him 35 euros for the improper parking, another 25 for the bike lane. He nearly spits out his coffee. 60 euros? For parking wrong? Yes, he asks if he can just repark. I tell him the ticket is already issued. He asks to speak to my supervisor. I tell him the number is on the ticket. He takes a photo of my badge number. I wait patiently. He gets in his car, still arguing, and attempts to parallel park. It takes him 11 tries. I'm counting. Other cars are waiting. A cyclist has to dismount and walk around. An elderly German woman stops to watch, shaking her head. On the 12th attempt, he's finally between the lines, but he's about 2 feet from the curb. I tap on his window. He rolls it down, sweating. Is this good? I tell him it's legal, but he should probably get closer to the curb. He asks why. I gesture to the traffic flow. He sighs deeply, pulls out, and tries again. Attempt 15 is acceptable. He gets out, locks the car, and walks past me without a word. His coffee is cold by now. I continue my rounds. 2 hours later, he's got another ticket. Someone else on duty got him for being 3 minutes over his paid time. I see him when I circle back, standing by the car, holding both tickets, staring at them like they're written in hieroglyphics. I work at a police station in Prague, specifically dealing with traffic issues. We get a lot of confused tourists, but one case from last summer stands out. American college student, maybe 22, comes in with her friend. Both are study abroad students. Very polite, genuinely worried. She explains she's received 4 parking tickets in 3 days, all from the same street where she parks near her dorm. She shows me the tickets, all legitimate. All from a blue zone that requires a resident permit. I explain the blue zone system. Residents get permits. Visitors can't park there without one. She nods along, then asks where to buy the visitor permit. I tell her there isn't one for that zone. It's resident only. She processes this. So where am I supposed to park? I pull up a map and show her the public lots, the park and ride locations, the streets with metered parking. She looks at the map, then at me. But those are all like 10 blocks away. Yes, I tell her Prague's historic center isn't designed for car storage. Most locals don't own cars. She mentions she has a car because she wants to explore the countryside on weekends. Her friend jumps in. In the States, if you live somewhere, you can park there. I explain that Prague has 7 times more cars than parking spaces. The permit system exists to give residents priority. The student asks if she can apply for a resident permit since she's living there for the semester. I tell her no, it requires permanent residency and proof of address in a long-term lease. She's getting frustrated. So what do other students do? I tell her most students don't have cars. They use public transport. She says the metro is confusing. I offer her a transit map. She declines, says she's already spent 200 euros on parking tickets and just wants to park near her dorm. I'm sympathetic, but there's nothing I can do. The law is the law. She asks if she can appeal the tickets. I tell her she can try, but improper parking in a blue zone is pretty straightforward. She asks what happens if she doesn't pay. I explain the fines increase, and eventually, her rental car company will charge her card automatically, plus an administrative fee. She leaves defeated. Her friend stays behind and quietly asks me, in pretty good Czech, where students typically keep their cars. I appreciate the effort and tell her about a long-term lot near the highway that's cheaper and has a direct bus line to the university area. She thanks me and rushes out to catch her friend. 2 weeks later, I see them on that bus line. No car in sight. They're laughing about something, looking more relaxed. Sometimes the solution is just letting go of the car. Most travel content tells you where to go. I show you how cultures actually work. The unwritten rules that locals never explain because they assume you already know. That's what this channel does every single week. Subscribers don't just watch. They arrive prepared. I'm a highway patrol officer in Germany, stationed on the A5 Autobahn near Frankfurt. Americans and the Autobahn are a dangerous combination. It's a Tuesday afternoon, moderate traffic. I'm parked at a rest stop when I get a call about an erratic driver. Silver Mercedes rental, swerving between lanes, driving abnormally slow in the fast lane. I pull out and spot the car within minutes. It's doing exactly 120 kilometers per hour in the leftmost lane. Cars are flying past on the right, flashing their lights. The Mercedes won't move over. I pull up behind with my lights on. The car continues for another kilometer before finally moving to the middle lane. I signal for them to exit at the next rest area. They comply. American driver, mid-40s, business traveler type, very nervous. His hands are shaking when he hands me his license. I speak English to make this easier. I ask if he knows why I stopped him. He says no, he was following the speed limit. I ask what speed limit? He says 120. I ask where he saw that sign. He points back toward the highway, vaguely. It said 120. I explain that advisory speed of 130 km/h is recommended, but there's no enforced limit on this section. He looks stunned. No speed limit, correct. He asks if that's legal. I confirm it is. He sits with this information, then asks why I pulled him over. I explain he was impeding traffic by staying in the left lane. The left lane is for passing only. He argues he was passing. I ask who. He doesn't have an answer. I explain Autobahn etiquette. Right lane for standard travel. Middle lane for passing slower traffic. Left lane for passing the middle lane, then immediately moving back over. You don't cruise in the left lane, ever. He asks how fast people go there. I tell him often 180-200 km/h, sometimes more. His eyes go wide. That's insane. I issue him a warning for impeding traffic. 50 euro fine. He tries to argue, saying he was being safe by going the speed limit. I explain again. There is no speed limit here. That 120 sign he saw was likely a temporary limit that ended kilometers back. He asks how he's supposed to know when limits end. I point to the end of limit sign in my manual. The round sign with the diagonal lines. He's never seen it before in his life. Before he leaves, he asks me one more question. How is this safe? I tell him Germany has one of the lowest highway fatality rates in Europe. Strict licensing requirements, excellent road maintenance, strong enforcement of lane discipline. It's not about the speed. It's about the rules everyone follows. He doesn't look convinced, but drives off carefully, staying in the right lane this time. I watch him merge back onto the Autobahn. Within seconds, a BMW passes him doing at least 220. The Mercedes swerves slightly, startled. I make a note to keep an eye out for that plate number. Something tells me he'll be back. I'm a driving instructor in Sydney, Australia. We offer international license conversion courses for expats. Americans are my specialty now, though not by choice. This woman from Michigan books a 2-hour assessment. She's been in Australia for a month, living in the suburbs, and she's tired of relying on her husband for rides. She has 20 years of driving experience. Should be straightforward. We start in a quiet neighborhood. Basic maneuvers, getting used to the right side drive. She's tentative but adapting. Then we head toward a main road, and I tell her to turn left at the light. She signals, waits for green, and starts to turn. I slam on my instructor brake. She's turning into the far lane, Australian style. But she drifted into oncoming traffic for a second. Heart attack moment. I explain the turn. In Australia, left turns go to the left lane. You don't swing wide into the far lane like in the States. She argues that's how she was taught. I explain different country, different rules. She tries again. Better. Still too wide, but no near-death experience. We continue. I direct her onto a larger road with a speed limit of 60 km/h. She's going 40. I tell her to speed up. She says she doesn't want to go too fast. I remind her the limit is 60. She says that seems fast for a neighborhood. I explain this isn't a neighborhood, it's a main road. In Australia, 50 km/h is standard for residential streets. 60 is for arterial roads. 110 for highways. She looks skeptical, but accelerates. At a roundabout, she stops completely at the entrance, even though there's no traffic. I tell her to give way to the right, then proceed. She inches forward, stops again, checks all directions twice, then goes. A car behind us honks. She gets flustered. I tell her roundabouts require flow, not full stops, unless traffic is present. She says roundabouts in Michigan are rare, and she's not used to them. I note this for our next lesson. The turning point comes at a pedestrian crossing. She sees someone waiting to cross and stops in the middle of the road, blocking both lanes. Hazard lights on. The pedestrian looks confused. I'm confused. I ask what she's doing. She says she's letting them cross. I explain they're waiting at a zebra crossing, but she's not at the crossing. She stopped 10 meters before it. The pedestrian has to walk to where she is. I realize the issue. In parts of America, you stop for pedestrians anywhere they're waiting near the road. In Australia, you stop at marked crossings only. She thought she was being polite. Instead, she created a hazard. We end the lesson. I recommend at least 6 more hours before her test. She's disappointed, but agrees. As she's leaving, she asks if Australian driving rules are intentionally confusing. I tell her they're only confusing if you expect them to be American. She thinks about this, then nods. Fair point. She passes her test eventually. Takes 8 total lessons, but she gets there. The best one, though, happened in New Zealand. I was working as a shuttle driver between Queenstown and Milford Sound, one of those scenic routes tourists love. Beautiful drive, winding mountain roads, plenty of one-lane bridges. American family of 4 in a rental camper van booked the shuttle because they'd heard the drive was challenging. Smart choice. The dad explained they'd already had 3 close calls on South Island roads and decided to leave the driving to locals. I appreciated the self-awareness. About halfway through the drive, we approach one of the one-lane bridges. There's a car coming from the other direction. I slow down and stop before the bridge, letting them cross first. The dad leans forward from the back seat. "Why'd you stop?" I explain the bridge protocol. 1 lane, 1 direction at a time. Whoever gets there first has right of way. But if someone's already on the bridge, you wait. He asks how you know who got there first. I tell him you just kind of know. You make eye contact, assess the situation. Sometimes someone waves you on. He's not satisfied with this answer. But what if both people think they're first? I tell him that rarely happens. Kiwis are pretty polite about it. He presses on. But there must be a rule, right? A legal standard? I explain there is a rule. Give way to vehicles already on the bridge. Beyond that, it's courtesy and common sense. He pulls out his phone and starts searching for New Zealand bridge laws. His wife tells him to relax. He shows me an article about a proposed standardized light system for one-lane bridges that was rejected in 2019. See? Even you guys know it's confusing. We cross several more bridges throughout the journey. Each time he provides commentary. That guy waved us on even though he was closer. This bridge is longer. Shouldn't there be different rules? What if there's fog? His family starts ignoring him. I answer patiently, but internally, I'm amazed at the need for rigid structure. At Milford Sound, he tips me generously and says, "I'm a great driver." Then he asks, genuinely curious, "Do you ever think New Zealand should just build more bridges?" I look at the mountains surrounding us, the engineering nightmare of this terrain, the millions it would cost. I tell him we like our one-lane bridges. They're part of the charm. He nods, takes a photo of one, and walks off to see the fjord. His daughter stays behind for a second and apologizes. "He's a civil engineer," she says. "He can't help it." I tell her it's fine, I've seen worse. She smiles and runs to catch up with her family. The stories never stop coming. Different roads, different rules, same confusion. I track these collisions across 30-plus countries now. The roundabout disasters, the parking nightmares, the highway protocols that baffle even experienced drivers. Most people learn these lessons the expensive way. Subscribers learn them here first. And somewhere out there, on a one-lane bridge in New Zealand, an American civil engineer is still wondering why we can't just standardize everything.